Everybody, it's X-Oriente, and welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Uh,
I'm your host, Jason Van Dyke, and with me is my veritable co-host.
Eric Diamond,
There it is.
the man with the plan,
That's exactly right.
otherwise known as the most dangerous man in masonry. Why, I have no idea. I have no idea.
I like that. That's a nice name.
The most dangerous
I
man
think
in
that's
masonry. You like
fantastic.
that?
The most dangerous man in masonry.
Yeah.
I dig that a lot. That's fantastic. See,
Grand
another.
Lodge will have nothing to say about that, will they?
No, no, no. Here, I think that's another T-shirt idea, though. That's great. File that away. T-shirt would be fantastic.
Most dangerous man in masonry.
Most dangerous man in masonry. Yeah,
Okay.
that's nice. Well, welcome everybody. This week's show is going to be about Masonic conferences, and I picked that topic this week because I just got fresh off of one, and it made me think a lot about all of the conferences that I've been to, and the good and the bad and that kind of stuff. And I thought, well, maybe other people, want to hear about that kind of stuff. So I figured we'll talk a little bit about them. And then that'll nicely transition into an idea that Eric and I have. Stay tuned. All right, so let's get down to it right away, and talk a little bit about conferences. There are a lot of them out there, and when I talk about conferences, I guess I mean more than just the Masonic Society conference that's held out in Alexandria, Virginia at the don't they always hold it at the George Washington Masonic Memorial?
No,
Eric,
this year they held it
moved
in
that around.
Lexington. In fact, I think the last time might have been the last time too, but this year was definitely held in Lexington, Kentucky.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I've heard reports that it went pretty well, pretty well attended, and there was some interesting. I know that John Rourke was out there, I think, and he was scheduled to. I feel bad because I should have been there, and I was not able to go. I was actually traveling on business. Actually, I had been traveling on business the week before and just got back, so I didn't feel like it was
Sure.
too cable towish to jet off to Lexington.
Sure. Sure.
But
It makes sense.
yeah. But I heard John was there, and he gave he gave kind of a sneak preview of his his data. Apparently he's been crunching the numbers on his grand survey since almost a year now that he I think he was gathering stuff last October.
Sure.
So
That's awesome. That's way cool. Well, and I think that that brings up the point that these conferences are really content driven for the most part. And I guess that's the obvious first thing to talk about with these things is that, as far as these conferences go, if you are interested in them, you should choose one that you see interesting topics in things that you want to either hear about or talk about at one of these places. And generally, they're of the conferences that I've been to, most of them are pretty interactive. They're not too much stand and deliver type things. There's always time for questions afterwards. A lot of them have panel discussions, which are always really cool. And really, the good ones have really good panel discussions that you've got smart guys on the panel that are able to really take the topics and the discussion and kind of keep it moving along and bringing it up to a new level. So I'd say the first step is to find something that you want to participate in, see, either hear about or participate in. But really, I think the biggest thing about these conferences, and I think Eric, you will concur on this, is that the conference itself is fine, but you should see anything that you get from a conference as a bonus, from a presenter or from a panel discussion or a paper presentation, any of that stuff. That's a bonus if it's good. The reason that you're going is for the networking. You're going to meet Masons from around the country and sometimes around the world, and you're going to make connections there that you wouldn't make other places, and that's invaluable because it really opens up your world. In some ways, it for me, it's always it's either made me really thankful for what I have here, or it's kind of inspired me to make what I have here better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm taking their ideas and I'm bringing them back to, you know, my lodge, my Grand Lodge, whatever, and trying to say, hey, you know, I've seen this, I've talked to these guys, you know, in this place, and I want to kind of steal from them. I want to take their great idea and see if it works here.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really the most important thing that you're doing there. So if you're going to a conference that's out of town, I highly recommend stay in the hotel. Find the hotel that everybody else is at and stay there. Oftentimes, you know that little time that you're in a conference, which is basically, you know, business hours. It's a 9 to 5 deal. Fine dandy, but afterwards, you're really going to want to hang out with everybody, and that's kind of the gathering place, or at least the jumping off point for people to go find a cigar bar or whatever to go and hang out with. So, you know, I mean, listen, there could be no better testimony to the power of Masonic conferences. Then I met Eric at a Masonic conference. I met him at Masonic Week. Way back low 2007, 6.
Yeah, sounds about right. 2006, yeah.
I think 6 as well. Yeah. You know, and that's the thing, is that you know, I'm not a member of AMD, and that's really what Masonic Week revolves around. Back then, it revolved around some York Rite invitational bodies and things like that as well, and they've since kind of split off and done their own thing. But I'm not a member of AMD, of any of those AMD bodies, but it didn't matter. I went to go and sit in the lobby and meet and talk to new and interesting people.
Yeah. So one of the things that is you know, it's difficult for me. Like, the only reason that I went to Masonic Week in the first place was because, you know, my lodge brothers, you know, the guys who were in AMD with me were like, well, you have to go, you know, it's this thing we all do. And so, you know, since it was in Washington and I love DC, you know, I used to live in DC when I was a kid. So you know, it was kind of a no brainer for me, you know, like, yeah, sure. You know, and then once I got there, I really had this amazing experience, which incidentally had absolutely nothing to do with the proceedings of the conference, right?
It's exactly my point.
To the point where I think by 2007, I think I first went in 2003. But by 2006, 2007, I wasn't even attending any of the events. Like, I mean, I wasn't really.
Yeah.
And this is, we'll talk about Masonic Week a little bit more, but I wasn't, you know, really participating. I was just kind of going out there to hang out with people. And that's primarily why I go, you know, when I still go, it's an opportunity to kind of meet a group of people that ordinarily, like, you know, I mean, some of them are from Oklahoma, some of them are from DC, some of them are from New York, some of them are from, you know, Florida, some of them, you know, they're from all over the place. And so that's the only time we all get together in this one place to meet. And I think that, but other than that, I really haven't attended Masonic conferences. I've attended, you know, other sort of like professional type conferences, but I haven't really attended Masonic conferences. And aside from the you know, sort of the what you said, right? So what you said was, well, the reason you go is to network. Actually, no, all right, wait, let me back up. I take that back. I did go to one conference. I was the representative of the Grand Lodge of Illinois for the Shriners had their membership conference. So the Shriners have a conference. I know. Yeah, right. I know.
They chose so wisely.
It's ever, like, if you just sort of picture what it might be like, it's like that and worse.
Fantastic.
So what it was is like all of the membership committees for all the, what do they call them? Divans, couches, whatever.
Whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm sorry. Did I just disparage
the various shrine, you know, bodies that were around the country? All the membership committees would get together in Tampa. I think it was Tampa. That's where their headquarters is, right?
That's where their headquarters is, yeah.
Yeah, so got together in Tampa, and for like, 3 days. And it was sort of a bunch of meetings about how to get more members and how to, you know, stuff like that. And there were a couple of good presentations and stuff, but, for me, it wasn't a very good experience. And part of the reason is because, there was, a lot of drinking and bad behavior. And this isn't like, here's the thing. This isn't reflective of the shrine. Like, there are a bunch of guys in my lodge who have their own shrine club, and they have an amazing time, a great time. And they're great guys. So this is not an indictment against the shrine by any means. It's just this particular conference that I went to kind of left me with a bad taste in my mouth as a representative of a Grand Lodge. So one of the things I remember is we were sitting around and somebody said, why aren't you a Shriner? And I said, well, and at the time, this is totally true. I said, I have a young kid. And I've got a really busy job, career, and I'm pretty much tapped out in Masonry. And I think it was right before I started X-Oriente. So it was like, even then it was sort of like a lot, it was a lot of Masonry. And I, like at that time too, like, my wife she wasn't quite like, she was never like unsupportive of my participation in Masonry, but there were times in our lives where, she probably could have used me more around the house and, with the kid, and sometimes Masonry took me away from that. So I think for me to join another group that, made me drive out to the western suburbs and stuff like that to hang out with guys, I think she probably wouldn't have been crazy about that. But anyway, so this is what I said. And so, unknown to me, they made arrangements for me to be fezzed at site, which I said, please don't do that, because then I would, immediately have to drop. I don't want to embarrass anybody. And at this,
right.
And then we sat down and someone said, and I said, well, I'm really involved in my Blue Lodge, because I was about getting into the line at that point. And they said, Blue Lodge? What do you want to bother with Blue Lodge for? Nobody goes to Blue Lodge. And the guy who was saying this was just, just about falling down drunk. And I was just like, you do know that I'm a representative of the Grand Lodge of Illinois, which is Blue Lodge,
right. Right.
It just, it was like a bad situation. And so it never it kind of left me with a bad taste in my mouth. And I'm sure it's not representative of the shrine, like I said, and I'm sure it's gotten better over the years, but, like the idea of going to a conference like that was just like, so I haven't really done it. And so,
sure.
Right. And so then the other things I've seen and, are things like academic conferences. And so there's plenty of those. There's a bunch that they do in Europe and the UK, which seems like very serious academic affairs.
They're super serious.
Where they present papers and everything like that. And those look kind of interesting, but man, they're in Europe, and that's a pretty big ticket. If you're not being sponsored by some group.
Yeah. Yes.
And so the question that I have for you is like, so you want to have a positive experience. How do you pick? How do you go about finding the right conference for you?
Well, right. And that's, I think that goes back to exactly what I said in the beginning, which is you find something that you're interested in, first of all, right? Because I don't think you were ever interested in the shrine,
No.
Otherwise you would have sought it out. Right. Exactly. You would have sought it out in the first place. And I think that's probably one big reason why you didn't have a great experience there. You weren't really interested in it in the first place. They sent you, and that's nice. And you're interested in going to Tampa and saying like, wow, it'd be nice to be warm for a little bit. But I mean, you do still need to be kind of interested in what's going on at these conferences. So, if you're into the Scottish Rite leadership conferences, I know in the Southern jurisdiction, I used to help put them on, and I've been a speaker at a bunch of them. They generally are pretty good. They're not big. I've never been to a Masonic conference that is a big, well-oiled, entertaining kind of a keep you going conference that professional conferences tend to be. right? Where they're really big. They've got multiple tracks that you can get yourself on. There are interesting speakers in multiple different things. It goes on for 2, 3, 4 days sometimes, and there's always way too much to get to that you're not going to get to. Usually those big professional conferences have, great marketplaces that you can, wander around and get lost. They have sponsored networking events and things like that. That's not necessarily my experience in the several Masonic conferences that I've been to. They tend to be more organic. They tend to be more amateurish, and I don't mean amateurish in a pejorative way. I mean it in its literal meaning of the word. These guys aren't doing this for a living. They're not putting a conference together as a professional thing. They're putting it together because they're trying to bring people together to share ideas. And so it's a conference in its most pure form. So they tend to be really simple events. And because they're these simple events, you really need to go to things that you're going to be interested in. Otherwise, you're not going to have a lot of fun. Unless, of course, you go to a really big national conference that's got a lot of people at, like Masonic Week, where most of those people aren't there for the AMD body stuff. Most of those people are.
Do you think so? Do you think that that's true?
Yeah. Absolutely, I think that's true. I think that the vast majority of people that I've met at Masonic Week have hung out in the lobby the entire time, and only breaking every once in a while, being like, "Oh my God, I forgot I'm the head of a body. I have to go. I'll be back in like an hour. Hold on." And literally that's it. So and that's the thing is that, and that's what makes it so fun. And especially at a thing like Masonic Week, right? Because it's out here in DC, you end up, because of convenience factor, you've got Art DeHoyas, you've got Brent Morris who live out here. And they end up, attracting other people like Sean Greystone, and Rex Hutchins was actually just out here for biennial session. And the opportunity to sit and talk with people like that is just invaluable. It's invaluable.
Yeah.
I had an incredible discussion with Rex that that you can only have with Rex when he's bored,
and
which is, I'm just going
to,
well, right. It was just like, what's hilarious is that it basically ends up being like, I'm going to fight with you about something, and I don't really care about it. I just want to do it because we're both bored. And then it turns into this incredible intellectual conversation.
Oh no, he's great. He's great.
And
if you've ever had the privilege of having one of those kind of conversations, in fact, the very first thing that I did was have a conversation like that when I first went to Masonic Week. It was like the second thing that he sat down and he was arguing with me on a point of Judaism, which I thought was hilarious.
Totally.
But here's the thing. This guy's got the King James Bible committed to memory. The entire thing. The entire text committed to memory. Yeah,
absolutely.
Plus he speaks fluent Hebrew, and
and the thing is that the reason that he's arguing about these points and things like that is not to win. That is not his,
it's to learn something.
His goal.
He's going to learn something from it.
And you've got to think of him as the beginning of those conversations it's like a miner uses a pickaxe, right? Yeah, he's going to whack at that thing for a little bit, but the conversation itself starts to open from that. And you start going down these little rabbit holes, and you start to get away from what was the first point of the conversation. And you start to mine into things that are way more important and way more interesting. And with someone like Rex, you just never know what you're going to come up with. And so that's the cool part of these Masonic conferences, is that you're going to be able to meet people like that, and you're going to be able to really actually sit down and talk with them, or at least listen to them. Sometimes it's better, especially with people like Rex, to shut your mouth and not show your intelligence, me included, because sometimes it's too much, and I just go, I'd rather just sit back and listen for a while, and you learn just as much from that stuff. So, I mean, I love that. So I think that's one way to do it, right?
Can I tell you a funny Rex story?
Go ahead, please.
So this was I think it was 2004. It was a huge blizzard in DC, and we were snowed in for like 3 or 4 days. And the night that the conference ended for us, my friend Jonathan and I tried to leave town and get to Baltimore, and we couldn't get out there. Like we managed to get out there in a cab ride that I was sure I was going to die in, because people in DC just do not know how to drive in snow. They lose their minds.
No, they do not.
And so we finally get into BWI, and they close, right? So Jonathan and I are trapped out there with no food for 2 days, which is funny. Like, knowing, if you know Jonathan Barnes and me, like, we're both the sort of guys like after 2 days we'd be eyeing each other like and seeing chickens in our heads, like
totally.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No. So we finally we make it back to DC, and everybody, who was smart, like stayed in the hotel. And that night we all went out to dinner, and we were having this conversation with Rex and Sean Greystone and a couple other kind of luminaries in Masonry, about the ineffable word, right? So the origins of the ineffable word. And Jonathan and I have been arguing about this now for as long as I've been a Mason, which is, I'm pushing 20 years pretty soon.
Okay.
And he's always maintained it's some Scottish, like, and to me it's Hebrew, right? It's like, right. So we're talking about this, and Jonathan like starts, giving this, like laying out his theory and sort of very, according to, Stevenson, who wrote The Origins of Freemasonry, and then Rex just turns to Sean and says, I don't know what he's talking about. It's Hebrew. Right. And I just did a spit take. Like,
it's so wonderful.
It was great. But yeah, it's you're right about that. It's a great, it's a great kind of thing. And in a way I'm kind of sad, because like Masonic Week, that the thing that I really loved about it, there were a couple things that I really like about it. One is that it happens in February. Mm-hmm. And DC in February is usually pretty benign. Like usually you might get a snowstorm every now and then, but like, compared to Chicago or Milwaukee, that's
very true.
It's a breath of fresh air. So it hits my year right, like right in between, like right after the holidays, and you're kind of hitting that down, that down from the holidays, and it's before springs in the Midwest. So it's a really kind of welcome relief. It's just sort of like, just as you're getting like that seasonal depression, you have something to look forward to. And so it actually hits at a, even though like a lot of people complain about the time of year that it is, it actually hits at a good time of year for me anyway. The fact that all these people like show up, right? So all these friends of mine that I've made over the years by just attending this thing year to year, show up. But and the beauty of it is like, I belong to AMD, but just barely that. I mean, I think I belong to AMD. I think I belong to, I go in and out of the Grand College of Rites, and I think I'm a member of the Night Masons, and that's it. Because everything else requires, some sort of Christianity orientation, which I don't do. And so a lot of the, I don't know what you call it, the troubles, there was like this whole big fight between the grand whatever and I don't know much about any of it, because I wasn't, like, not only did I not have a dog in the fight, I wasn't able to be anywhere near where I could understand what was really going on. But needless to say, one of the things that happened with Masonic Week was that they moved the meeting of the Masonic Rosicrucians out of February Masonic Week and into, where do they do it? Like Kentucky?
Yeah, right. Something like that.
Louisville or something?
I think it's Louisville.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
And so that's kind of a new Masonic conference. And from what I've heard, it's not bad. From what I heard, it's pretty good. Like there's some pretty good, speakers and things going on there.
I experienced the Conference of Grand Masters of North America for the first time as a participant last year.
Oh.
And it was held in Omaha, which is actually a great city, a lot of fun. And I really like it. They got the best damn steaks in the country. Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. And so I went to that. Let me tell you this about the Conference Grandmasters in North America. It very much wasn't for the programming. There was very, very, very little of use going on in their programs, whether that be the Grand Masters Conference or the Grand Secretaries Conference was being run simultaneously. There's very little good information. I mean, it's just they talk at each other. It's in my opinion, it was an opportunity for people to get up and brag about their state. Here's how great we are and what we're doing, while everyone else doesn't pay attention. I coined the term weaponized boredom because I think that they could literally use that conference. They could weaponize it and do great harm to the world.
You would think. Now, here's the thing. You would think that conference of all the conferences would be the most interesting, right?
So here's no. Well, wait. I'm not done yet, Eric.
Okay,
because
sorry.
It is. That being said about it, afterwards, as soon as the conference ends and these people are let loose into the bar area, then it became interesting. And then it became mingling and talking to old friends that you hadn't seen in a while. And people from all over the world go to this thing. And that immediately became more fun. It made everything worthwhile, because now you get the real stories from people. You don't get it. You don't get the whitewashed crap version that they put up on really bad PowerPoint decks, trying to lull people to sleep in the conference. They're telling you the behind the scenes stuff. Here's how we got to this point. Yeah, I am really excited about this. This idea is really great, but it really took a lot of work. Here's how I worked on getting it to that point. That is useful information. That's good stuff. So it was an incredible conference, as long as you weren't in the conference, if that makes any sense. And I think that's how a lot of these are. But it's the Conference of Grandmasters in North America was hilarious, in that there was so much good that came out of that conference, but only after the conference.
So
only sitting and talking.
So we have a comment. So Mike Cambrecht, aka Mike the Intern from Masonic Roundtable.
I'm reading as well.
So it says, to me, going to a conference should be about the event. I shouldn't need to hang out in the lobby in hopes of finding something interesting. I've heard about the lobby at Masonic Week, but if they call it Masonic Week, it should have something for every kind of Mason also.
Yeah. Okay. So, and let me say this, Mike, it's a good point, but first of all, I'll say this about your statement there is that, I shouldn't need to hang out in the lobby in hopes of finding something interesting. You're doing it wrong. You should be finding something interesting. You're not just hanging out by yourself in the lobby, hoping to God, some luminary in Masonry comes and sits down and talks to you. In fact, absolutely the opposite. These are one of those situations where you just have to take that leap of faith and go sit down in a group of people, introduce yourself, and start talking. You've got to be a little outgoing with these things, and you'll find out very quickly that the degrees of separation, your 6 degrees of separation, start to really shrink really fast at these conferences. So as soon as you introduce yourself to one person, that person will immediately turn around and go, "Oh, great. It was wonderful to meet you. Let me introduce you to XYZ." And now you start to stack those relationships. And that's what makes it interesting. The thing is that there's very little that anybody is going to be able to offer you in any of these conference sessions. There really isn't, for the most part, the people that are going to these sessions, they have the means to get to the sessions. So that means that they're at a certain point in their career, or they've been successful enough somewhere else that they've probably been to professional conferences before and things like that. And frankly, they already know what it takes to, create a successful lodge. I mean, it's interesting, but it's not that interesting in a conference form.
See, I disagree, and I'm I want to defend Mike for a second, and that I agree that the conference should be about the event, and
I think it's a bonus.
And no, yeah, but I mean, like that's the reason you go. That's the, you know, it's not. Look, put it this way: all right, let me ask you a question. When you eat a cupcake, do you eat the frosting first, or do you eat the cake first?
Right.
Okay.
Well, right.
Why?
I get it.
Yeah, it's a cupcake, right? You're buying it for the cake. You're getting the frosting, right? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, see here's my thing too. Is that, right? And so Greg Knott just posted and said, right, the lobby conversation is the best. It's where I've met so many great brothers, and that's exactly it, right? When you're in a conference, when you're actually in the room, there's only usually one person talking at a whole group of people. Or best case scenario, you've got a panel conversation, and that's 3 people, and it's a very structured conversation with a whole lot of people. You get so much more in the lobby afterwards when it's completely unfiltered. You get to say what you want without the specter of being embarrassed in a very large public space. And often those things are filmed, that they're putting them on their website. So you kind of have to watch your P's and Q's, but things are much more raw and real in the conversations outside of it, because they're small groups. The stakes are low. You can actually afford to be yourself and to have your own personality. And I think that's really, really important. So, you're not meeting brothers in a conference room. You don't meet anybody that way. You really don't. Yeah, you've heard someone, or you've been in a room with people, but that's it. You don't meet anybody. You don't form a relationship. You don't do anything other than sit and listen. It's like going to school. Fine, you go to class, but you meet people outside of that classroom. You never meet anybody in it. So I guess my argument stands is that anything that happens in that classroom setting, bonus. But you're going to meet people. You're going to expand your social sphere a little bit, to push the boundaries of your local Masonry and push that a little bit further out. So that's why you're going.
So if that were true, right, then I would expect to see Masonic Week better attended than it is, right? Because Masonic Week has been about the lobby, and look, they've done a lot of stuff to try to kill it, right, over the years, like putting it in crazy hotels, putting it like 30 miles outside of DC. I mean, they've done a lot of stuff.
Sure.
It survives, right? But it's, I think that when you go to a conference, you go for the material, and the lobby is the bonus. And eventually, like if you luck out, if you do it right, eventually you make a cadre of friends that you start to see over and over again. Right. So
correct, right.
I think you need both. And this is sort of one of those things that like always struck me as the tragedy of Masonic Week, is that they never really, the people who run it never really saw it as anything other than an opportunity to get together for these York Rite bodies. And let me tell you, those things are, like you can say weaponized boredom. It really is.
Right.
I mean, it's unbelievably dull. Like if you've ever been in a really dull lodge meeting that is just like, we're going to pay the bills, we're going to elect new officers, we're going to, like it's that times 20, right? Because every one of those like obscure little, or it's like a banquet luncheon, like, or, not even a banquet, like just a luncheon, just like a, like a,
here's your rubber chicken salad.
Holy Royal Arch Knights Templar priests, or something, like just like really super, the Knights of Acon and the Athelstan and, like just all kinds of craziness. So I've always thought that it would, so here's the thing. I agree with you in the sense that the lobby is where it happens. The lobby is where everything happens. However, someone once said, I think it was Howard Gardner, who's an educational theorist, like he was asked, like, should we be teaching people things to memorize, like facts and figures? He said, look, you need to know how to think, but you also need something to think about. and that you need both, right? You can't just like teach somebody to Google something because they won't Google it, right?
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I think that we could do better at it. But my argument is that the whole purpose of these things is the lobby. Now, here's an interesting part.
But what if we fixed it?
But I agree. Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. So I think that what's interesting is that you get a better lobby if you have a better conference, right? Because you need to be able to attract a lot of people.
Yeah.
And those lot of people then need, a little time for conference and maybe a little time to prime the pump that comes later in the lobby. And I think that's what you're talking about. And I think that's something that we may have an idea for. Eric?
Yes. Yeah. So
what would you say to that?
So what I would say is I think that there's a couple things. First, I think that Masonic Week, we should definitely rethink it, right? Because I think that these smaller York Rite bodies, it's clear that they're in decline. Like every year that I go there, there's fewer and fewer people who go.
Right.
I think it's less important to millennial Masons to be part of so many bodies. And correct. I think that there's sort of a natural kind of not culling of the herd. I mean, that's a harsh term, but there's sort of a natural attrition that's taking place where people are finding, like, here's the thing. If you're in one of these bodies, right, and you're in the line or hoping to be in the line, you go to this thing, and that's what draws you to it. And what I've seen over the years is that the people who are like super interesting, are either from DC or they're from New York and it's just a quick train ride down, or they're nearby. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or they don't come every, like they'll have to make the decision. Like, do I go to Kentucky for the Rosicrucians, right, or do I go to this? I can't go to both because I don't have the money or I don't have the wherewithal. So we're definitely seeing a decline in attendance, right? So what I was thinking that, like, if I were going to fix it, there's two things that I would do, right? One is that I would change first of all, actually three things. Amongst the things I would do,
our three weapons.
Three weapons. Here. No one expects the Spanish Inquisition. The three things that I would do is first thing I would do is I would not make it an exclusive York Rite event anymore. We've actually brought people from our lodge who were barely in York Rite, let alone being in AMD to AMD week, and they never went to any of the events, and it didn't hurt them a bit, and they really liked going.
Sure. Spoiler alert: I'm not in any of that stuff. I just go for the lobby.
Yeah. Secondly. So basically what I would do is I would make the material all about Masonry and not necessarily, I mean, here's the thing. If you wanted to have a slight esoteric, spin on it, that'd be cool. Okay. Right. I think people would dig that.
Yeah.
But I think
a lot of people would dig that.
Yes. But I think it should be geared toward, Masonry. Someone's offering you a petition, Jason. Just so you know. Come on. So that would be the first thing that I would do. The second thing that I would do is something, and I've been kind of floating this idea a lot, and people either love it or hate it. But I take a lesson from TEDx.
Yeah.
Or TED, and so basically what TED does is you have it's almost like have you ever heard of Pechakucha?
No.
So Pechakucha is this weird art form.
Sounds vaguely dirty.
It does, doesn't it?
Wait, is that the one with the toilet paper? No, that's Mom and Sean's. Never mind.
Yeah, that's Mom and Sean's. No, Pechakucha is actually a Japanese word that doesn't really have any meaning. But what it actually is you give it's sort of like a poetry slam, but you get 20 slides and you have 5 minutes to
that's cool,
to present something. And so you have to tell a complete and coherent story in 5 minutes. And so it's, and you have up to 20 slides to do it. And so it's this sort of like storytelling art form. And so they, you know, like for a while it was really popular. It's a little less so now, but it was like a big thing in bars. Like you would, you know, you'd have, you know, kind of like how they have trivia night and stuff like that in certain bars. They would do Pechakucha. And TED is sort of like that. Like all TED Talks are time boxed to 15 minutes.
Correct.
Right. So the idea would be like you would have a bunch of Masonic presentations that were 15 minutes long. And the purpose of the presentations is to stimulate conversation in the lobby. Right.
There you go.
So the presentations give you something to talk about, and then you go into the lobby and you talk about those things. Right. So they should be things about the future of the craft and you know, what's happening, what are the trends and
they should be controversial. They shouldn't have one answer.
Yeah, exactly. They should be controversial. There should be, you know, people don't necessarily have to agree at the end of it. They should propose questions. And then the lobby, the lobby is where those kinds of things would get answered. And so this is something that I would love to see. And I've actually been talking with, a couple people who are kind of connected into the management. So maybe, you know, maybe we'll be able to kind of enhance it. So, J.M. Hochberg says that he says, respectfully, Masonic Week is not a conference. It has that dry business only atmosphere because it consists of the annual business meetings of the bodies that convene there. I know. I would say, I know. That's the problem. That's the problem is people say, well, it's not a conference, right? But it is. It is. And you know what? That doesn't mean that you don't have to have those bodies and they don't have to have their business meetings. Right. And the big fear and what's interesting is the big fear about reforming this is that people think, well, people aren't going to go to my conference. But then either make your session more interesting. Right. Right. Yeah. Or B, just, you know, like there are things you can do in terms of the scheduling so that, you know, if your, you know, Grand College of Rights meeting happens in the morning. I mean, first of all, I don't know anybody who's like on that early in the morning.
Correct.
To be, you know, most of the stuff that we're talking about happens, you know, afternoon, you know, starting like around lunchtime and then, you know, into the wee hours of the morning. So, so that's what I would do. And then finally, one of the things that I kind of wanted to do is to, make a virtual conference, right? So there are people who can't get to Washington in February. But we could, you know, just things like this, like we're doing this show live right now. We could be doing things like this live throughout Masonic Week. And so one of the things that we're trying to put together now, again, with the help of our executive producers, is kind of a mobile kit that will allow us to open up a broadcast booth at Masonic Week and just have all of, you know, like, so there's a Masonic podcasters group on Facebook.
In Russia, we bring lobby to you.
We bring lobby to you. I think in the group, didn't they counted, what was it, like 35 different podcasts and of various types, which really warms my heart. Cause that was like, it was really funny. When we started X-Oriente, I think we were like I was the only podcaster actually creating original, you know, that wasn't like reading papers at the time. I think there was one other one. And I just thought, oh, it'd be really nice to have other podcasters to, you know, play reindeer games with, and there just wasn't any. But now there's 35, which is really awesome. It's really makes me proud.
I know.
So what we would do is we'd set up this booth, and we would have a constant stream of programming, so it would be kind of like the lobby, but it would be available to anybody who wanted to tune in. And you know, we're looking into things like being able to have tiled areas, or we can have you know, tiled discussions. I think it's an idea whose time has come. It wouldn't be that bad. I mean, I think the biggest challenge for us will be bandwidth, right? Is just getting a decent, reliable internet connection in
Yep.
the hotel.
It's bandwidth and it's time, right? Because it's going to be a time commitment from us. But I think all that stuff those are problems, but they're solvable.
I don't know. I mean, yes, it's a time commitment, but I'm already committed, right? I go anyway.
True.
I
Right.
sit in the lobby and I talk about stuff that's interesting to me. So, I mean, all this means is that I would spend a little bit more time at the hotel, a little bit less time at Shelley's, but that's not a
Sure.
bad thing.
No. Then you wouldn't have to burn your clothes so often.
That's right. I wouldn't have to burn my clothes. I wouldn't have to fumigate as much. My wallet would be a
Shelley's.
little heavier just because I wouldn't be drinking quite as much scotch.
It's true as well. But I mean, I love it. And so we've talked a bunch about this, and we've flirted with this idea. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to try and make it a reality this February, where we really sit down and we do this stuff. And we've got enough friends around here with the Masonic Roundtable and guys like that I think we can sit down and pull people in and enjoy and really make something of this. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah.
I think it'll be really cool, and I think that people will get something out of it. And again, it's about that exchange of ideas. It's about meeting new people. It's about talking with them, and hopefully, what happens is that it gets interactive.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at Mike's comment. He says the scotch makes the conversations flow. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I mean, here's the thing, though. I hear that in Alexandria they have these things called liquor stores.
No, they're called ABCs.
Oh, they are?
They're not liquor stores. Yeah. No. So the Commonwealth of Virginia, not a state, the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Right. It's communism, isn't it?
That is correct. It is.
Yeah. Okay.
You tell them that. They love to hear that. Yeah, they have ABC stores. The state owns their quote unquote liquor stores. You can buy beer in like a grocery store or whatever, but liquor is only sold in an ABC, in a state-run store.
Oh.
Yeah, and consequently, the prices are not the best. In fact, they kind of suck.
Oh.
But yeah, interesting enough. So, Virginia?
Well, we can smuggle.
True. I believe that's called bootlegging, but whatever. Beyond the point. Yeah, whatever. State line here or there. Never hurt anyone really.
It's not a.
I think that
it's not a state; it's a district.
True, and it's a commonwealth, so I guess we're fine.
Yeah.
We go to Maryland. Maryland always has good booze, and they've got great deals at Costco. It turns out.
Costco, yeah, there you go. All right, so we have the liquor situation well in hand. Now we just have to come up with the programming and the technology, and yeah. So here's the rest of it. Yeah. So here's my question.
Funny how the liquor solves itself so quickly.
I know. We're bad people, Jason.
We really are.
All right. So here's my question for the audience. If we were to do something like that, and like imagine for a second that it wasn't just us, but we got the Masonic Roundtable guys in on it. We got,
special guests.
We were able to line up, cool talent. We got, maybe some cross sponsorship with the Masonic Society or other people. We haven't talked to anybody yet, so we're just kind of riffing here.
Right.
Would that be enough? Like, would you come? Right? Would you come? Either would you tune in, or would you
come?
Would you actually come and be there in person?
Because
and we're talking about different ways
come.
of doing it. Like, could we actually have a booth set up in the lobby, or would we get our hospitality suite and do it that way?
Mm-hmm.
There's different options. What are your thoughts? And especially I want to hear, if you're one of our executive producers, I especially want to hear from you because all of the stuff that we're able to do, video and all this other stuff is because of our executive producers. And so, it's time we got you guys to actually produce. So, let us know what you think. If this is something that, Yeah. JM says, yeah, get moving now if you want a suite or a table. Yeah. We'll do that. We'll do that.
Very fair.
Yeah, for sure. We were actually talking about doing it not this coming year, but next year. But I'd like to, at least do a dry run, like do something this year.
Yeah,
let's do something. Let's
I agree.
Let's get it going. Hey, and if you're out there and you're interested in speaking or contributing or presenting a paper or just hanging out on air, drop us a line and let us know at X-Oriente at gmail.com, or leave us a message on our Facebook page. And if you like the idea and you like what you hear here, consider becoming an executive producers. The executive producers, for $5 a month, we've revamped the kits. In fact, we just got a new sponsor, a new executive producer. Let me go grab his name real quick.
Tell us all about him, Eric.
I'm going to. I just have to go find his name real quick.
I think while you're doing that, I want to just reiterate that the more people that come, the better it is. That's it. Now you can go. Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. Let me just open up my email client here.
The only thing
Ted
that's not
Langdon.
a real big.
Welcome
Who
to
is it?
Ted Langdon is our newest.
Ted Langdon.
Ted Langdon.
Hi, Ted. Thanks for sponsoring.
Thank you. Is our newest executive producer. So
Awesome.
we're spooling up the kit, and we're gonna get that out to you this week. And so if you go to our Patreon page, it's patreon.com/X-Oriente. You can become an executive producer, and that like our next big project, we have two projects on the horizon. One is to finish developing the X-Oriente app, so you'll be able to get the podcast through an app. And then the other one is this conference idea of creating kind of a virtual Masonic conference. And so to do that, aside from whatever space we, if we have to, rent out a table, or we have to get a hospitality suite or whatever, in addition to that, and possibly the bandwidth, we will need to invest in some, right now the way we do the show is we do it remotely. So it's great when we're all in separate places, because then we can kind of assemble the show together. What we don't have is the ability to kind of be on camera and have everybody kind of mic'd in a panel discussion. So we would have to invest in a little bit of mobile kit to be able to do that. And again, this is, one thing about the show is that we're very committed to high quality in terms of, audio, production values and stuff like that. I mean, I've heard, in fact, one of the things I think we could do there is do like a podcaster's, maybe we could do like a technical seminar or something.
I like that. I think that would be really fun, actually.
Because there's some podcasts that are really good, like Masonic podcasts out there that are really good, and they're just unlistenable because they're
Also,
the tech is so bad, and it's just it's just small things, it's not real hard to do, but you just got to know,
And conversely, and I can speak from my experience of trying to run a really, really high quality podcast by myself, that it's nigh impossible to do.
Yeah.
There's so much ungodly amounts of work to do if you're trying to edit it to NPR quality. It really hurts. It sucks. It's really hard to produce.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a great idea. That's really, really cool, Eric.
Cool. So, so definitely let us know what you think. Drop us a line. Feel free to contribute any ideas that you have. If there's a particular topic that you want to see covered at this kind of thing, let us know. And, if you are a regular or, to Masonic Week, and you think this is a horrible idea, we still want to hear from you. I do. I want to hear from you. I want to know,
Right. Yeah.
So,
we have no idea. We just listen to ourselves all day.
Well, and I just think that I got so much out of Masonic Week, and I continue to get so much out of Masonic Week. And because it's because of the people there, and I want more. I want to be able to if I could bottle this. And in fact, I said this back in like 2005.
Yep.
And that was actually, you know what?
Totally.
I have to tell you, that's the reason X-Oriente exists. That's the reason that I originally started the show, is because I would go to Washington. I would have these fantastic conversations. I'd come back to my lodge and it would be like, oh, what role are you playing in the next degree? Or gossiping about Grand Lodge or gossiping about the Supreme Council or whatever it was. And I thought, I really would want to have these conversations more often throughout the year. And so that's what prompted me to look into a podcast. So I want to be able to, I think that everybody should have the opportunity to have a conference experience like that. And so that's kind of why I think this is an important idea.
Yeah, 100%.
So Mike's already in. He already said it's already in
I saw that.
So
I've already liked it, which means that I believe that it's a contract. Yeah, Mike, you're in. Legally, there is promise. What is it? Promise, payment, and consideration. All three of those are present. Those elements are present in that post. So, Mike, too bad you're in.
There you go. Awesome. Yeah. All right. So that's our show, I guess, for today.
Sure.
We'll be back hopefully probably next week. By the way, for people who are tuning in, we're going to be shifting our regular time to 4 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Eastern. Just to accommodate your busy social schedule. What?
No, it just seems like an easier thing to do in the afternoon.
Yeah. No, it's
it's and plus, I end up at night on Sunday nights, like I'm like all a buzz after talking, and it takes me a long time to like calm down and go to sleep, and then I got to be up at 6. So.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to be shifting a little bit earlier. I'm all for it. I'll be a lot less tired and more chipper and stuff like that.
I'll be less cranky.
Yeah. Less inebriated. I'm not.
Right. No. I'll be the same level of inebriated.
This is water, by the way. Water.
Yeah.
Chin. Okay. So that's about it. Everybody, take care. Fiat Vox. And we'll be back next week with another episode of X-Oriente.
See you, everybody. Thanks.